This is Learning the Ropes. Learning the Ropes. Presented by Costin and Hammer Productions. Now, on to the show with your host, Josh Hammer.
Welcome, everybody, to Learning the Ropes, the podcast that uses the game of baseball as a vehicle to learn about a variety of other topics to improve personal development and to better understand the perspectives of those around us. I'm your host, Josh Hammer, and regardless of how you know me, all you need to know is that today is a special occasion because we're talking the game of baseball. And so today's a surreal moment for me. I've been following this gentleman's career since I was a child. In fact, I was born the same day or the same time that he debuted in the major leagues. And so without any further ado, please welcome to the show a former utility player, first baseman, outfielder in the Major League Baseball League. He played for the Twins, SF Giants, Royals, Mariners, Tampa Bay, Oakland, and of course, the Boston Red Sox from 03 to 05. And so, once again, I just want to welcome Dave McCarty to the show. Thank you so much for taking your time to be here.
Well, thanks for having me, Josh, and thanks for making me feel so old.
I had to say it. We were talking a little bit before we started filming, and it just made me laugh. I was like, man, it's crazy, how fast things turn, and never in a million years would I think I would at least be virtually standing in front of someone that I look up to for that many years. So I'm just grateful that you took the time to be on this show with me. That being said, I want to jump right into something special, and that's that 0-4-1 or a run with the Boston Red Sox under Terry Francona. Out of all the coaches that you've had, with all of the experience that you've had in the major leagues, I know you've mentioned Terry Francona was someone that really meant a lot to you. And so I was wondering if you could just share a little bit about that experience, not just winning the World Series, but playing under Terry Francona.
Yeah, so I first met Tito in 2003 when I was with Oakland, and he was the bench coach there.
Right.
I was in spring training with him, had a really good spring, did not make the team, but developed a good relationship with him. And he actually said, hey, if I end up getting a managing job next year, make sure you talk to me before you sign somewhere. Well, little did I know, later that year, I ended up getting picked up off waivers by the Red Sox. And then the very next year in 2004, he shows up as the manager. So
I had no idea.
Good relationship with him. Okay. Yeah. He really is a special manager. In a place like Boston where there's so much media pressure, he did an incredible job of really keeping the heat off of the players. A lot of times even taking the blame for things that weren't his fault just to cover players so that they wouldn't catch heat. And
that's,
kept
that's incredible. Fun. I didn't know, you see that on media, but to live that out, I would only imagine someone that's going to bat for you in front of the media like that at the time, especially I'm thinking with Boston, particularly at that time, it was kind of like a frenzy all the time. So someone to be even keeled to squash that, I'm just like, how did that happen?
Yeah. And especially after we lost in Game 7 to the Yankees in 2003. And
right.
That was really tough for everyone to go through. And it certainly didn't turn the heat down for 2004. So he did a great job of really kind of, taking heat that a lot of times players should have taken. And it made it a lot easier for us because we could really just focus on playing the game and not having to worry about all the drama and the added attention.
Yeah. I had imagined there's so many moments, particularly in 03, 04, I'm thinking back to the ALCS with A-Rod slapping the glove. It's like, I remember just everyone was losing their marbles over that. Particularly it's because it's the Yankees and just the fact that the Yankees are going to how is he out or how's he safe? It's like, well, you can't just slap a glove. I mean, what? I don't care if you're Alex Rodriguez, but that's just me being a fan of baseball and just not really enjoying A-Rod. But at the end of the game, I'm like, yeah, I guess it's a high heat moment in that span of time, and it's a hostile game for both sides. Like I can't even imagine what it's like being in the dugout. What was being in the dugout like at moments like that?
It was great. I mean, just the intensity, the energy you could feel in the air. It really made it fun to play in those games. During the season, in the postseason, when you would match up with those guys, it took it to a whole nother level. I like to tell people it's almost like you got AAA, you've got the major leagues, and then you've got these couple markets, New York, Boston, Chicago, the Dodgers have a big following, the Giants have a big following where, there's just the fans are really invested in each and every game. You run into them on the street the next day and they're like, oh yeah, great game yesterday. I saw you got 2 hits or whatever. And you're like, whoa, this random
person no idea
knows, who you are and how you did and the team won. And, so-and-so came in and pitched well in relief. And it's the knowledge base is really high there. It's not just a social event like it is for a lot of clubs. Typically,
yeah,
where people just go to the game to kind of have a good time,
to have a beer and hot dog. Yeah. Wow, that's pretty incredible. I never even would have thought of something like that. I guess it's just so. Here's something crazy about me: is any one of my teammates are listening to this or rolling their eyes right now, but or laughing. I would say, the ringleader, or let's just say enthusiastic in the dugout. I had a really good time. So one of the things I've always wondered is, I was rowdy rah-rah, I would say, day in and day out in the dugout. Part of it's being a pitcher. Those dang pitchers, you know how they are. And so, I'm thinking 162 games. I don't think there's a chance I would be able to sustain that kind of energy day in and day out in the dugout. Now, here's my thing. I'm not a Bush League guy. I love high energy, but I was never a Bush League guy. Now, I would rally against our ball players and have a really good time in the dugout. So my question is, what were some of your favorite moments in the dugout, and were there any other ball players that you're just kind of raising your eyebrows like, oh my goodness? But I would imagine it's pretty even keel at the next level though, because you're playing under 62 games, but I know there's got to be moments that you're just like, oh my goodness, these guys are
sure. There are always moments. It's hard to think of just one, certainly one that could go out over the air, but they're always, guys are always screwing around, and you got to do things to kind of keep things light and fun, and because otherwise you'd go crazy. I mean, you're at the ballpark constantly around the same people, like you said, 162 games plus playoffs plus spring training. So it's 8-9 months out of the year. And I think a lot of people don't realize, it's 6-7 days a week.
Right.
You go down to spring training and you're down there, it's, God, what is it? 6-7 weeks. And you get 1 day off. That's it. You're going every other day. And so you've got to have fun.
Ken Griffey would always say, right, is you got to turn that pressure into pleasure. So you got to play, and Tony Gwynn, right, play hard and have fun, all that stuff. I think those quotes that are generally memes and get posts on social media, it's like, well, those memes and posts came from something, and they came from that grit of playing at the next level consistently for that many years. And what's been incredible about your career, in my eyes, is how you've had to really battle adversity and go from different organizations and be a utility player and just be that quality team guy. And I can't imagine what that's like after like maybe year 3, year 4. If, like you said, it's like you don't get a day off. So what worked for you to keep positive, keep calm, and to keep going through those times of just the daily grind throughout a season?
Yeah, I think, well, number one, the those big games when the pressure was on, I actually love that for a couple reasons. Number one, like you said, with the season being so long, you're flying from time zone to time zone, and day games and night games, and your body's all screwed up. You don't know when to sleep, when to be awake. When you have those exciting games, and there's the atmosphere like you would get in Red Sox Yankees games, it gets your adrenaline pumping and it gets you up for the game, and so you're not tired, you're not sore, and it makes it easier to perform. And as a bench guy too, it's no fun when it's 18-2 and they say, okay, go in for the starter, and that anything that's caught in the air by the catcher is a strike because the umpires want to get out of there and get the game over with. And the other team's bringing in, the young wild guy who, they want to get some innings, and he's throwing 120.
Yeah, the Chapman, the raw Chapman.
Where it's going. Yeah. And people wonder why bench guys hit 240, 250, and it's a good year. Well, you get a lot of at-bats like that. You sit there for, 2.5 hours, and then all of a sudden it's, here, go, get up there.
Kid. Yeah.
So, when you get those at-bats where you're pinch hitting and it's a big spot in the game and the game's on the line, you're going to get a real strike zone. You're going to get, one of the pitchers who has an idea what he's doing. It's just, it makes it a lot easier to perform, or at least it did for me. I know some guys really don't do well in kind of the pressure markets. They'll do better in
when it's not doing so well.
It's a mediocre team that has, 2 beat writers and there's no pressure on you. And they thrive in that. But for me, it was the opposite. I loved that excitement and the adrenaline rush, and, knowing that if you get a hit, you could be the hero.
Right. Yeah. And just like, I think when you have those big moments, it definitely gives you something to look forward to, especially when you live it out, like maybe that one time at that high level.
Yep.
It just probably makes you more, hungrier for that next moment to come.
Oh yeah.
And the thing I think about is obviously, I don't think so. There's never been a baseball team down 3-0 in the playoffs and come back to win. And the Boston Red Sox in 2004, you had the opportunity not only to live that out, but to be on that team for that year, experiencing the ups and downs of the year before and coming back. And so to me, that's just resilience. Would you say that the team was like closer in 2004 just because of like having to go through the hardship of 2003? Or were you just kind of like focusing on the process that, like the Golden State Warriors would always say, even when they're winning, they'd win 20 games in a row, that they're just kind of like, no, we're just focusing on doing our thing. What was the mantra kind of going into the playoffs in 2004?
Well, in the playoffs, really once we knew going into it, we had a good shot. We had a good team. We were playing great ball at the end of the year. Once we got down 3-0 to the Yankees, we knew that if we could somehow get through Game 4, we had played those guys a million times,
right?
Because of the unbalanced schedule. And so we knew them inside and out. They knew us inside and out. We knew because we had to battle to get in with the way our pitching was lined up rather than theirs, because they were able to set it, having won the division. It lined up better for us if we could just somehow win Game 4. And so we all believed that, if we just somehow won Game 4, that we had a really good shot. And, I think winning it the way we did in Game 4, with Roberts coming in and stealing the base when everybody in the ballpark knew he was going to be going.
Yep.
And then Billy Miller getting a hit. It just, it's just this huge adrenaline rush for all of us. It really built up the momentum. And I think, because the Yankees knew us so well, they probably knew too that, the way the pitching is set up here, we better try to knock these guys out.
Yeah. As like just a upcoming ball player that had the dream of playing college ball, and just like witnessing that for me was always a story that hit close to home. And that's why it's such like an honor to have you on, because I was not the most talented ball player. I didn't throw hard. And I'm by no means, I knew the Red Sox were talented enough. It wasn't that. It's just that minor setback, major comeback story, that underdog of being down 3-0 and then just coming back and taking it. And for some reason, that story, I think anybody that knows the game of baseball or is familiar with baseball and wants to take their game to the next level need to revisit that time in baseball history, because that's the kind of stuff that shows what teamwork is all about. Everyone talks about discipline. Everyone talks about hard work. To me, I don't believe in just that. I believe that you have to care for it, and then the discipline and the hard work will come with it. And for me, watching that story unfold was something for me as a young ball player at my age at that point to be like, you know what? I can grind this out and I can find a way to do this. And so for me, and I'm sure there's other ball players out there that felt just super lifted up from that story of watching that happen. And any other team in the league that maybe be like, you know what? Yeah, why not? Never say never in baseball. That's all I could say from that. To be able to like be a part of that time in baseball history, for me, just talking about it gives me goosebumps, but I can't even imagine what playing in it and being in the grind with the fellas, watching that happen and unfold. Like, I don't know how that feeling could be. But, you've played in many different organizations and you've seen a lot of things in ball clubs, but would you say that was hands down, winning the World Series is the best thing ever, but what were some of your other highlights with other teams that really stuck with you?
Well, so, breaking into the big leagues with the Twins, getting to be around Kirby Puckett, Dave Winfield, guys like that, and kind of learn the game from them. But then, I had so many incredible teammates that I got to learn from. There's Barry Bonds and Matt Williams in San Francisco, A-Rod and Ken Griffey Jr. and Jay Buhner and all those guys in Seattle. In Kansas City in 2000, we had Jermaine Dye,
I love
Johnny Damon, and Carlos Beltran in the outfield, Mike Sweeney at first, Joe Randa, Ray Sanchez, Carlos Fabulous. We were loaded.
Sounds like it.
So, I got to play on a lot of good teams with a lot of good guys. The one thing that really makes that Red Sox team stand out, though, was it really was a special group of guys, and I think the best, top to bottom, the best group of guys that I played with in my career. I think everybody got it, that it wasn't about their individual stats. It wasn't about them getting 2 hits a night or pitching a shutout. It was about winning the games and ultimately being able to raise that trophy at the end of the year. I can honestly say that, on days when I would get the start at first base or the outfield or something, the guy who was the normal starting player was there on the top step of the dugout cheering for me and really actually wanting me to do well. And it was that way, for everybody. So we had our reunion in 2014, 10 years after that championship, and some of those guys I hadn't seen in 10 years. And it was like it could have been 10 days We all got together, and there's this real bond, kind of a brotherhood that we had from going through that experience together. And I don't think we'll ever lose that.
No, that's incredible. In a very, very small way, the only way I could relate to it is in college. I played on the very first baseball team ever for the Division II program and for the university. And so even though we've had change of coaches my junior to senior year, or just for my senior year, we still have that tight bond because of the experience. And so I think what's really special is, you went through different teams in your careers, and you just mentioned a plethora of all-stars that really helped not only mentor you, but just like molded your baseball experience and made you probably the person that you are today. And so, I don't think any of us ever can forget such a moment in baseball history, nor, I remember just like yesterday stepping out to the field for my first, pitching debut, and for you to just have that moment I bet you remember almost every moment about that season in 2004, just because of the special unit that you had that year.
Yeah, I remember a lot of moments, but then at the same time, once we got into the playoffs, a lot of it's a blur, just because it was almost like sensory overload. A lot like, I don't know if you're married, but,
no, not yet.
Who are married will understand that, you go through your wedding and it's like you need a wedding photographer or videographer there
just to capture it.
It's just a blur finish. And it's like, okay, what just happened? And it was very similar to that, that it's hard to recall just certain, all the moments, because there were so many big highs there.
Absolutely.
And lows too, for that matter.
Which make the highs even sweeter, as they say, right? Yeah. So the last question before we sign off for this podcast, a question that I'm sure many college athletes tuning in have is about just how's the game different? You played Stanford and then you moved on to the minors and then Minnesota. So how and what way is the game different? Is it just the pace, the talent, the velocity? What would you say is the major difference between each level?
All of the above. The way I think about it, it's kind of like a pyramid.
Right.
Each level you get up the pyramid, it gets tighter and tighter until you get to the very top. I played with a lot of guys in AAA who could have easily played in the big leagues, but they just they didn't quite have all the tools, or they were stuck behind a guy in the big leagues who was an all-star, or the coach didn't like them, or the front office didn't like them for whatever reason. They liked somebody else, and you got to get lucky, you got to get breaks. But when you do get your break, you got to have worked hard and prepared yourself so that you'll be in a position to succeed.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It just, it takes a lot of luck and it takes a lot of hard work.
Yeah. I mean, just not only keeping your body in, top tip shape, but just that mental and emotional grind of believing in yourself and staying confident, even if you don't get that call. I can't even fathom that. It's like, and especially in the minor league level, it's a job, like you've mentioned before, but a fulfilling one nonetheless. So if you allow it to, and I think, baseball applies on and off the field in every facet. And that's what, why I've created Learning the Ropes. And it's been fun to shape and mold it and to come all the way already to meeting someone of your stature who played at such a high level. So for that, I'm incredibly grateful for you taking the time to be on here. Now, I can't let you off easy. I have one more question for you. I personally had a walkout song that folks would say was an interesting choice. I would walk out to Flash by Queen. I will not sing it because I don't want to hurt anybody's ears, but it helped me just kind of relax when I went up to bat. You know, Hunter Pence had Katy Perry as his walkout. Now, so my point is this is a non-judgmental free zone. So if you have a song that is clever that, you know, you come out to, I won't judge. But I'm wondering, if you were to come out today, you're up to bat, you know, you're in that big game, that playoff game. What's that song that you're walking out to come tank a line drive?
Maybe Limelight by Rush.
Ooh, okay. That's solid.
Certainly in the limelight when you're out there.
Oh, I see what you did there. Yeah. That was a good on the fly call, because last time I asked the NFL offensive lineman, not shooting fire shots at him, but he wasn't able to think of one on the spot. So that being said, he said welcome to the jungle because he played on Cincinnati. So I was like, well, that makes sense. Anyhow, thank you so much again, Dave, for being here. And on behalf of myself and Dave McCarty, this has been another rendition of Learning the Ropes. If you like what you've heard, please rate and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And if you're tuning into YouTube, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, throw on those notifications so you know exactly when the next Costin and Hammer Productions video drops. This has been Learning the Ropes. We'll see you next time.